Your spine must stay neutral. Picking up a small child, hip hinge and keep a neutral spine. Did you drop your keys? Hip hinge and keep a neutral spine. Are you getting out of your car? Hip hinge and keep a neutral spine. And that doesn't make much sense because the spine should be able to move and twist. But for some reason, we always talk about the neutral spine. Now, what if I told you that by you always keeping a neutral spine, you could be making it less resilient and more likely to get injured? You see, when your body doesn't move in certain ranges for a long period of time, when you do move into those ranges of motion, they don't feel good and they could feel dangerous. And now with most of us sitting in chairs, couches, we don't allow our spine to move into different ranges of motion. That's why I teamed up with Vernon Griffith. We did a podcast with him and he's a world-renowned strength coach. And in this video, you guys are gonna learn different ways that you can move your spine so that it can become resilient in all different ways. And ideally over time, you won't have back pain and you'll be less prone to back injury.
I think when people are adding exercises or thinking about that, they always think about, well, I don't got no time. Like, how do I add this exercise into it? It's like, you're not adding an exercise. We're just creating a layer on an exercise you're already doing. Mm-hmm. So go back to that single arm row. So if you're already doing single arm rows in your programming, one of the big things I think coaches make a miss at is they always think scap, lock down and back, neutral spine. So they're thinking lock my scap down and back, row back, rigid spine, where I'm not even getting much movement of the scap. I mean, when we think about a pulling motion, I should involve what's going on with the scap around that area. So now I'm allowing that protraction to occur. So if we're already doing single arm rows from a cable setup, why don't we stagger our stance? So go left foot forward, right foot back, still doing a single arm row. Now from here, I'm involving this hip. I'm getting this diagonal line from this shoulder to this hip. I'm allowing this scap to protract and reach without shrugging. And now I'm gonna go back simultaneously and go into that row. Good, so now I'm getting that reach, so I got good scapular rhythm, pulling back. So I'm still getting that hypertrophy and strength of having a single arm row, but now I'm getting this functional aspect of movement quality. And the big thing I really like about this from the split squat position is now I'm getting this diagonal stretch across this line here. I'm getting this diagonal line, this stretch, and if you come around the front side, I'm even feeding into this hip a little bit, because as I'm bringing the shoulder across, I'm getting this diagonal line across the front side, challenging this internal rotation right here, and from there I can cue the foot into the ground as I reach, pushing my foot into the ground, driving through my first met, pulling. I can even add a little bit of English, tying in, keeping that knee where it's at, as I rotate away. I'm still getting the hypertrophy and strength of that row, but now I'm adding the movement competency of opening up, adding rotation, preparing someone for like life, for an athlete, for rotating, for moving, getting that scapula involved as you push and pull.
How do you help people understand the way they need to be trying to breathe? Because a tendency is going to be to hold the breath.
Yeah.
So what do you have people think about?
Honestly, I'm just telling them whatever feels natural. Mm-hmm. So is it in the inhale on this? Is it the exhale on this? I'm just saying, hey, stay calm. Stay calm, breathing. If your mouth is closed and you're breathing through your nose, you're probably going to be in control of what's going on.
We mess with the cable machine and do a lot of rows from different angles. And one thing that I've been finding that has been actually helpful in helping me unlock my lower back has been trying to do things to allow movement there. So there's, for example, there's a row that I really love to do. I haven't there's no specific name or anything for it. What I do is I'll come here, right? I'll allow this to reach, but then I'll also allow myself to literally bend here and create bend at my lower back. And then I'll come up, and then I'll row, and then I'll come, and I feel that all the way down here, and then I also feel that also going, now my left hip is literally in the back of the socket, and I come here and I row through. Doing things like that have been really beneficial for my lower back, and I can understand how for some people that might not be where they could start, but is that something you see being beneficial? Do you think there's a dangerous aspect to it? What should people think about as they're beginning to adventure with a lot of flexion?
I don't think there's nothing dangerous about the body. There's a perception of danger, but what you perceive as danger is all relative. It's what you've exposed your brain to. Now, for someone that hasn't exposed those flexion positions, you might get in that position, your brain hasn't been there, and you're like, oh God, like things aren't happening, and maybe something gets tight because your brain's job is to protect. So when it gets to that position, things might cinch up because you're like, I haven't been here. Yeah. I don't like this. But when you get into these positions, that's life. If I go to pick up something from my kid, I'm probably gonna go down and pick it up. I'm not gonna go I'm just going to go down, grab it, and pull it up. So
Yeah.
something like that, exposing yourself to it. So if I'm starting out, if you think that that's a limiting factor for you, or maybe you have some tight QL area or getting some glute issues, and you think that loading into your hip, loading that rotation is a good idea, which is what you do, or jiu-jitsu specifically, because when something goes over, you're loading that pattern.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of value with you being confident there. So if that feels good, maybe you start out lighter, maybe you start out more of in a squatty or squingy position, and then you kind of ease into locking, going back into that single leg hinge position, rotating. But it's progressing in no different than strength training. If you think there's value there, like, let's progress it.
You know, obviously the strength athlete that's squatting, benching, deadlifting, typically they have no need for, like, you don't want to be in a squat and then you don't want to do that. But some strength athletes find certain injuries happen when maybe they're working with a load and then something does happen. There is a movement that they don't typically go into, or a range that they don't usually go into, then they pull something. Do you think that these ideas of spinal movement could be something, and I know people hate mentioning this, but could it be something that could help a strength athlete prevent injury, or am I on a wrong line of thinking with that type of idea?
I think no different than if you're building a house, it's most important to go into that house with as many tools in your toolbox as possible.
Okay.
So if I'm preparing an athlete for the demands of sport, or even some like jiu-jitsu, some weekend warrior that just goes in and rolls around on the weekend, they're exposing themselves to all kinds of things. If you recorded video of you going through a jiu-jitsu practice, you'd be very surprised how your body contorts and moves, and then you come inside a gym and you're like, oh, everything's rigid. So it's like trying to find that go-between, but I don't think there's nothing wrong with it at all, because you're almost giving your brain these tools of, hey, you might not need this, but maybe you do. Like, you're getting into this position. Is it functional? For a lack of a better word, yeah. But when it's loading into those spots, you're just giving your brain like access, like, hey, you're good here, you're comfortable, this is fine, we can be here, you're good, you're comfortable, you're safe. And I think that's great to equip yourself with that, or equip your clients that you're working with.
What are some other movements that maybe, you know, if we're doing kettlebells or we're working with bands or something else in the gym, that we can add aspects of rotation, spinal flexion, etc.? What else do you think?
I'll give you one. I got my favorite one. So with this bar set up here, I'm thinking that same aspect. I'm just involving a little bit of grip with this. And all I'm going to do is hang, no different than I would like a horizontal row. So if you're in this position, oh shit. If you're in this horizontal row position, everyone has done this. But how do I load that scapula moving around the rib cage? So if I'm here, I'm going to allow that shoulder to reach, pull up and through, rotate and reach, pull up and through. So now I have grip, I'm getting my forearm involved, my elbow, rotating my scap, turning my shoulders, pulling from the bottom, rotating and reaching up. Try that. To me, this is connecting the dots. I got full body awareness. Bend your knees a little bit more. Good. So go both hands up on the bar to start.
Good.
Hips up square. Perfect. Now from here, think about this hand goes away. Rotate your hips to the ground. Try to turn your shoulder. Now reach up and row. Perfect. Turn a little bit more. Pull. Rotate. Pull and reach. Higher. Try to rotate a little bit more.
Go to here?
Yep. Go for it. That's challenging the scap. That's challenged that movement, and you're rowing. But if you notice, when we use our body weight, sometimes when we use like weights, things can feel a little cumbersome because you're like trying to find your place.
Yeah.
But like body weight stuff, it's like your body just organizes because it's your body weight. I don't know what the process is, but that feels so natural. Whereas that, because there's a fixed point, like because it's the weights, it might feel a little different. Like that's one of my favorite movements for challenging that rotation, involving the shoulders, letting the scaps move. Like that aspect of pulling money. As a coach, it's almost like, how do I get people to explore different positions? And I can only coach so much. I can only say flex, extend, rotate, but it becomes a point where you have to take ownership of it. But I can't touch you and move you all the time. So something like a T-spine rotation where I'm here, we've done these before. People have done these. Open books, reaching back, getting T-spine rotation, but the spine does more than that. So how do I coach that? Well, I get into this position here where like hands behind the head almost, and I say, hey, I want you to go as low as you can, staying tight to the wall. Okay. Now I want you to turn, rotate, staying on the wall, staying tight to the wall, and reach, 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 reach. And now I'm getting into those extended rotating positions, but I can't coach you there.
Yeah.
But watching you rotate, watching a jiu-jitsu practice, you're gonna find that on your own. But using the wall to contour and guide is a good example. Give that a try. If this is too hard to get in, try to keep your knee close, yeah?
Keep knee close.
If this is too hard, I'll even have people put their hands on their chest because maybe they're not there yet. And from here, all I want you to do is go as low as you can. Look at the flexion and rotation of your spine. When's the last time you moved like that outside of jiu-jitsu practice?
Not often.
Most
Not
people
common.
probably not, right? That's a bad position to be in.
Yeah.
But if you're comfortable being in a bad position, now every position's a good position.
It's also a deep stretch in the hip.
Yeah.
I also feel in like my adductor, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. So now stay tight to the wall. I want you to go up. I want you to turn. I want you to stay glued to the wall. And I want you to reach back to your heel. Stay tight. Turn.
Turn here.
Turn. Yep, turn. Find your heel. Reach. There it is. More isn't better here. Just stay smooth with your movement. Stay confident. Don't try to force anything. Nice and smooth. Find a good reach. Now pull it right back up. Stay smooth. Turn your arms. Elbows wide. Nice and smooth. More isn't better. Good stretch right there. Perfect. You take it back up. Rotate. Explore. Reach.
This is great. What should someone think about conceptually for safe exploration into these different ranges? Because when something feels sketchy, sometimes it's sketchy, but we don't always know it's sketchy because we've never been there.
Yeah. So I would say what feels good, get to the edge of what feels good. I don't know. Then get out.
Okay.
Come back.
Yeah.
When you come back, that might be a little bit further. Get out, come back. Because it's almost like you're giving yourself like this touch point of like almost touching a stove. Like, touch it? I don't know. And oh, that's not hot. So that sort of concept. Like, get in there. I don't know. I haven't been here. Okay, then get out. Get all the way out so you forget where that's at. If people get there and they're like, I don't know, and they just go to here, oh, I know exactly where that reference is at. But if I go all the way back and then come back, I've already forgot how deep I was.
Yeah.
Now go back in. See what it feels like. Exhale a little bit deeper. Try to get a little bit further. But feel it out. Touch it, get out. Touch it, get out. Touch it, get out. You'd be surprised how far you can go with that. To me, people confuse intent with force. Like, it's almost like when you think of movement, when I think of that, I think of someone writing in beautiful cursive. That is very intentful. But versus what people think intent is like,
Yeah.
and that's what people approach mobility as, is like, I'm going to force this fucking thing no matter what.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, smooth, smooth, good brushstrokes.
Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, check out this podcast we did with Vernon Griffith. Lots of stuff in there. And if you don't want to check that out, which you probably should, you can check out this video where I talk about some supplements that I use to naturally increase my testosterone. Andrew Huberman approved. Check it out here. Pick one. Higher test, better movement. Pick one.